Welcome everyone to the AccountMate 13.1 for SQL new and Express new features webinar. I'm Christine and I will serve as your tour guide in today's discussion of the latest feature release for our AccountMate for SQL and Express product lines and by highlighting the key features and changes in this particular product version. Today's discussion will cover the following important areas or modules which have the changes that we will be discussing in today's presentation. Particularly, we'll be talking about the enhancements to the sales order and accounts receivable modules. A few manufacturing module enhancements will also be featured. And finally, financial module enhancements will also be discussed, particularly in the general ledger module. So let me go ahead and shift screens now to the AccountMate 13.1 for SQL screen, which I will be using in this demonstration. Just to let you know, I have two company databases set up in this installation to take us through the presentation because there are going to be setup steps that I will be taking you through, which obviously I will show you the initial screens where before you, as you initiate the setup process. And then of course, I'll take you through the actual database, which has already completed the setup. So for the purposes of today's presentation, just to give you a heads up, most of the enhancements in version 13.1 are going to be in the sales order and accounts receivable module. I would say about anywhere from 80 to 85% of the main enhancements, if we're just looking at enhancement wise, are going to be in the accounts receivable and sales order module. And that will be what I will be covering first in today's discussion. The biggest feature enhancement that exists in 13.1 has to do with the credit card integration that will be built in to both accounts receivable and sales order module. And incidentally, if you have AR and RMA modules as well, then you're going to see some of the features that are in AR as far as credit card integration functionalities will also be available in RMA as well. So as I already mentioned, the biggest enhancement is to do with the credit card integration. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar, I've never heard that term, it is basically a mechanism whereby the ability to verify and process credit card information in sales orders, AR invoices, and of course, for the purposes of payment is now built in to the accounts receivable and sales order modules. So that means your users who do accept credit card as a form of payment from their own customers will be able to process all of that, starting with the validation or verification of credit card information, all the way through the actual charging of transaction payments to the credit card. All of that is now built in the accounts receivable module, which means there's no additional module that your users have to pay for. There's no additional software they have to download and learn how to use separately from the main AR and sales order processes they're already familiar with, which means, again, a whole lot of time saved for your users since the credit card process is built into the transaction functions they're already familiar with if they've been using AccountMate for years. So in order to demonstrate the accounts receivable credit card integration feature, I'm now showing you the AR module setup screen, which is basically the first point of contact your users will have with the credit card integration, because it is here that they will activate the credit card integration related features. Okay, so when they receive our AR module in SQL 13.1, credit card integration, although it is built into the AR module, is not automatically activated, because at the end of the day, it is up to your users to determine when, if and when they want to utilize this feature. You will notice, for those of you who are familiar with the AR module setup, there's a new tab in this function called integration. All the functional features and functionalities in the AR module that needs to go through a setup process are now put together in this new integration tab, and that of course includes, but is not limited to, the credit card integration functionalities. So as you will see, the fourth checkbox from the top says enable credit card integration. Users will then have to mark this checkbox and go through the setup process. You'll see that there's an icon here that looks like a machine part. Okay, that is basically the button that you will need to press in order to call up the credit card integration setup screen or the corresponding setup screen for the other features that are also available in the integration setup. But let's focus on the credit card integration setup. Okay. I will obviously not be going through every step of the setup because this is not a training class. But I will highlight some key things to emphasize the features and functionalities, the very powerful capabilities that the credit card integration feature set brings to your AR module. Starting off with the fact that our credit card integration feature set in AccountMate 13.1 supports 3 credit card processing service providers. Okay, at the top of the list is Repay, but we also support 2 other providers, namely Authorize.net and eProcessing Network. Now, it all depends on which one of these credit card processing service providers your clients or customers ultimately wish to get the service from. So while for AccountMate 13.1, we don't charge you extra for the credit card integration, which is built into the AR module, which means it comes standard with the AR module, there is, of course, a secondary step, which is your clients who want to use this feature do need to sign up for this service with one of the 3 supported service providers that we show you or that I'm showing you in this screen. And they would need to sign up separately for any one of these, whichever ones they prefer. And obviously, there's going to be a separate fee structure for using each of these services. So that will be something that your users will obviously need to discuss with the corresponding service providers through with your help in order to come up with a decision on which service providers would best suit their needs. And obviously, the information that each service provider will supply to them in order to be able to set up their accounts inside AccountMate will differ depending on each service provider. For the purpose of today's demonstration, I will focus on the Repay service provider. And obviously, like I said, the settings and the information you will need to set up your account inside the AccountMate software will be provided to you by the service provider and will vary from one service provider to the next. So as your clients sign up with either any one of these service providers, they will be supplied this information and they just need to fill them up as needed. There's a test button that lets you software perform a test communication with the service provider's website to make sure that this account is legit and is accurate before you that the software can correctly communicate with the service provider online in order to get the process of entering credit card information and processing the credit card charges inside the software going. Now, once the setup is completed, there are, of course, additional tabs in here. And again, I'm not going to discuss all of them in details, but I will highlight a few things. Once you've set up your account, you then need to unmark the deactivate. Again, that is necessary in order to complete the activation process of your credit card integration feature set. Now, like I mentioned, credit card integration is a feature built into AR, but you also need to decide in addition to activating it for the AR module, whether you want to be able to activate the corresponding credit card integration features that are also available in the sales order module. Now, why do we make that a choice? We make that a choice because different companies have different requirements and different policies. In some larger organizations, they want their order processing staff to only focus on entering orders and not necessarily have to worry about entering credit card information, performing the validation process to make sure the credit card that is supplied by their customers is accurate before completing the order entry process. So for those certain types of organizations where they have a clear division between order entry people not handling any credit card or payment information and having the accounts receivable or back office handling all payment information, including credit card payment processing, they may not want to activate the credit card integration features in the sales order module. Thereby, they will unmark this checkbox. But other organizations may want to have no such demarcation between those two sets of processes, and they want to be able to let users enter credit card information as they receive customer orders, have the ability to validate that those credit cards that they receive from their particular customers is accurate before proceeding with the order, in which case they would want to enable the credit card information feature in the sales order module. At the end of the day, it's all a matter of policy. It's all a matter of what makes most sense for your users, but we give them the ability and the choice to control that process by making giving them the power to define whether they want the credit card integration feature set available only in AR or both in AR and SO by marking this other checkbox. Another thing that your users can decide is whether they want the ability to store customer credit card in their customer records instead of just having to enter them every time they receive an order if they turn on the credit card integration feature in the sales order module, and or when they create AR invoices, if they only want to activate that feature in AR. So that's what the Save Customer Credit Card Data checkbox is for. Now, in case you're concerned, because that's always a worry when it comes time to having to store credit card information, because that puts the onus or the responsibility of making sure credit card data is properly secured in the system. If and when your customers decide to store their customer credit card data in AccountMate, don't worry, because AccountMate does encrypt whatever credit card data is stored in the database, whether it's stored just in the transaction records or also added to the customer credit card file. All sets of data are encrypted. Okay, and furthermore, if they do choose to use a REPAY as their service provider, and there is also an option that lets you store the credit card information in the REPAY vault, which is also a secured location online, in which case the information will be stored through the REPAY through your REPAY service provider, which of course, like I said, is also a secure data site for you. Okay, so if your clients do prefer to have the ability to save customer credit card in the system instead of having to enter it every time they take a customer order, then rest assured that the data is going to be kept safe, because we don't keep them just with the complete credit card information. We actually encrypt that information, so that even if, God forbid, the database gets access or gets hacked, it's not going to mean anything to the users because the information is all encrypted. Now, you might ask, why do we even want to give the users the option to save customer credit card data? Well, think about it. Every time you process a customer order for a returning customer, and they're always using the same credit card, some customers don't like that. They don't like to have to be constantly asked the credit card when they have just made the purchase from you a few days ago using the same exact credit card, right? And so every option that we can give to our customers, your users, customers, in order to make life convenient while still assuring them that their credit card information is safe with you or with the software, then that is, of course, both a convenient and safe option we want to be able to provide. But at the end of the day, it is a choice that every user has to make, and we're just making sure that they have the option to make that choice. Another thing that we want to highlight is that there are other controls here that determine how the software will process credit card information in sales order and accounts receivable module, in different steps of the sales order process, and the invoice process, and even the payment process. So there are controls here involving what to do with voiding credit card payments. And there are also choices here with involving what to do when you need to refund credit card payments that are that have to be reversed and have therefore need to be refunded back to the original customer credit card. So these are just a few examples of transaction processes which may play or which may be affected by the credit card processing system, and for which the users are given options or choices on how they want the software to handle that as far as credit card payments are concerned. And then if your users do decide to activate credit card integration feature set in the sales order module, they also have options as to whether they want the system to always check the credit card that is entered for when creating sales quotes, sales orders, or when approving sales quotes, which, as you all know, when you approve a sales quote, that turns into a sales order. So these three options here, helps the system determine whether you want it to be built into the creation of those three sets of transaction, which ultimately creates either a sales quote or order. If you want the system to have it built into that save process to also validate any credit card information that is used in those transactions. And again, these are just to give your users options. In terms of options, in terms of transaction options, one really important thing to remember is that AccountMate does allow you to ship orders and have the system automatically generate the invoice as you're shipping the orders, in which case, when the invoice is generated, if the customer has already given you their credit card, they want to see on that invoice document that this has already been paid, that that the same credit card that they've given you the ability to use for to pay their invoice does show up that this invoice is already being paid by credit card. But you don't want to issue an invoice if you will send as part of the shipment, for example, or maybe in a separate email as part of your shipping process. You don't want to send them that invoice letting them know that the credit card has already been charged if it hasn't been charged or if it hasn't been pre-authorized. So that's where the pre-authorization process may come in. Now, another important thing to remember is that when most of the time, vendors will be your AccountMate AR users. Will want to make sure that when they're shipping the orders, if the customer had given them the credit card information during the order entry process, they want to make sure that before they ship those orders, that those orders are already paid, meaning there's sufficient available balance on the customer credit card that was given to them to cover the amount of what is being shipped. Because obviously once the items go out, and then it's going to be very hard to go back to the customer and tell them, oh, by the way, your credit card was declined, but oh yes, the shipment is already on its way to you. So some customers, some users would prefer that the system will check for them and warn them if the sales order that has been assigned a credit card pay code has been pre-authorized or not. And if it's been pre-authorized, if the amount that they're shipping is covered by the pre-authorized amount. So that's what this option is in here that I want to highlight, because that option to require pre-authorization for SO shipments is what your users will want to turn on if they want to have the system warn them that the sales order they're shipping is set up to be paid by credit card, and that either the credit card has not been pre-authorized, or if it's been pre-authorized for less than the amount of the items that you are shipping. Okay, so that's another option that's available for you. And again, that may be an option your clients would want to have in order to protect themselves, because they want to make sure before they ship their customer orders that the credit card that was given to them by the customer, it has enough available balance in order to cover the cost of the items that on the sales order that they're shipping, in case they're doing partial or full shipments of the orders. Okay, so again, that is just a choice. That is an option. That is one of the things that your users will have to decide for themselves if they want to go through a pre-authorization process as a required step before shipping the orders. And of course, if that is a required step as you're shipping the orders, that's one of the things that the software will be checking for. Otherwise, if you turn off this feature, then the software will just go through the normal shipping without any warning. So at the end of the day, it's all a matter of what makes the most sense for your users. But I believe that most users want to make sure they get paid before they ship the orders, especially if the order was supposed to be paid by credit cards. Okay. This section here lets your users decide what types of credit cards they're willing to support, whether they want to only accept Visa and MasterCard, or they also want to accept Discover and American Express. So just mark the corresponding checkbox to the checkbox that corresponds to the type of credit card that your user wants to be able to accept as a form of payment, credit card payment from your customers. Okay, and again, this is a choice that we make available to allow your customers, your clients, to make to have the full breadth of choices that is available to them. And obviously, there's also options available nowadays, whether if you want to be able to just email the payment credit card receipts to your customers as part of your payment process, instead of having to have your users manually send the emails themselves. So there are a number of email settings available. Obviously, you'll see that some of these email options are disabled because it all depends it all boils down to the email options that your service provider supports. In the case of Repay, which is the service provider I'm using for this demonstration, there's only one email setting option that they provide, which is the option to send a credit card payment receipt to their customers, which of course if your users want to take advantage of this feature, then they will have to mark that corresponding checkbox. But the other options are available for the other two service providers that we support. Now, gone through having highlighted the key features that I wanted to discuss, let's go on and show this feature in action. Okay, so I'm now changing to the company that has the credit card integration feature already activated. So one of the things that you have the ability to decide is whether or not you want to be able to save customer credit card data in your customer file. So this is what it's going to look like with the credit card integration already turned on, and the option to save customer credit card data also activated. So you will see the customer credit card information is here. And then there's a credit card maintenance screen button that lets you access the screen where you can view, edit, or add customer credit card directly into the customer file. Or of course, if there are any credit cards were used in transaction and you mark the checkbox to save the credit card, they will also be added and available for you to view in the screen. So, so obviously it's the same as the regular information, your card number, expiration date, the cardholder name, the security number. Now, I know whenever people hear security number, people start to freak out. Don't worry. We don't actually save the security number. That's just for initial entering of the information, because you can use this in order to validate the information as you're entering them in your transaction screen. So we're using the same credit card information screen that I'm showing you here in your customer file as is in the transaction screen. But you'll see that this security field is disabled here because it's only really used in transactions, and we don't save it after the initial validation phase when you enter the credit card in your transaction screen. Okay. Now, if you do have customer credit card information that you have prior to upgrading to 13.1, and you don't want to have to re-enter that credit card information, but you want the ability to send that credit card information you already have prior to 13.1, or even prior to activating the credit card integration feature in 13.1. So you don't have to double entry it in the system and also in the Repay website, because like I said, Repay allows you to get the information as a service provider to the Repay website. We have a separate function also available in AR housekeeping menu called Upload Credit Card Data to Provider. Again, that service or feature set or functionality is only available if your credit card processing service provider is Repay. And since I already have the data uploaded, I'm just going to quickly shift to my slide to show you what the screen is look like when you're doing that upload. So if I had existing credit card number for my customer, this would be the screen that I would be shown when I click on the upload credit card data to provider. And it's a wizard. Basically, it takes you step by step. You say start, and it takes you through the next set of screens that lets you then upload, that takes you through the process of uploading the information to the Repay website. And Repay, of course, through the upload process, will validate that every credit card information that you're uploading is valid. It will go through a validation process. And you'll see there's an error message here that shows you during the credit card validation process of the step of the upload process, if anything about that, any detail about the credit card you're uploading is invalid, it will show in this error message. And in case you want to see that error message after running that function, we give you a report called credit card transaction log that's available in the AR reports menu, which you can then use to view the failed transactions, including that upload process. And then you will see here under the transaction response section, more detailed information about the errors that the issues that triggered the error message when you're uploading the existing credit card information to Repay website, or when you're actually validating the credit card information in any of the transaction screens. Okay, so now let's take you through the actual data entry and how you're using the credit card integration in transactions. You will see the changes when you're creating sales orders, sales quotes, creating invoices, and applying payments. So for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm just going to show you the create sales order screen first. I already have sales order already set up here for the purpose of this demonstration. Okay. The critical point here is to make sure that you're using in your sales order or AR invoice or apply payment for that matter, a pay code that is set up with the type credit card and this new checkbox with the label credit card integration processing marked. Okay, these two, credit card type and credit card integration processing, are the things that the software looks for to with regards to the pay code you use in your sales order, sales quotes, AR invoices, and apply payment transactions. in order for the system to trigger the process of validating the credit card information you provide with your service provider, whichever one of the service providers that you select among the three. Okay. So then once I've selected the appropriate credit card pay type, then you click on this button here, which will be activated only if you use a credit card processing, credit card integration processing pay code, where you can then see this integration screen, credit card integration screen, where you can either select one of the existing customer credit cards or enter a new one for that particular transaction. And of course, if you want to, you can also verify whichever credit card information you select or you enter. And again, like I said, the verification will go through the actual requirement step where you will be asked for a security code. Again, this is only during the transaction process if you want to verify. We don't actually save the security code. So if you want to verify, you have to provide all information. And this is going to fail because this is not a real credit card, as you can clearly see. But I just wanted to show you what the validation process is going to look like and what happens if an error occurs because of any of a number of reasons, including the fact that this is a duplicate record. Okay. So again, you don't have to verify. Like I said, your users may want to be able to input or select the credit card number if it's one already exists in the customer file for that sales order, and just save it, but not actually verify it. Okay, because they don't have to click on that verify button. But that's the only part of the sales order or AR invoice or sales quote process that is different, where you have this ability to enter your credit card and have the system validate it. Okay. And then of course, there's additional fields here, like the ones that shows you how much of your transaction amount will be charged, because you may have open credits available for that customer. And depending on the settings you select, you may want to be able to apply that open credit first, and therefore only the balance will be available to charge. Okay. So I'm not actually going to save that. I'm going to leave that sales order as it is, because I wanted to show you another feature that's available in the sales order module. And that is what we call pre-authorizing sales orders. So like I said, one of the options available to your clients is that they want to make sure before they ship an order, if that order is supposed to be paid by credit card, that their customer has sufficient available balance to pay for the items that are going to be shipped, because they don't want to have to chase the customer after the items have already shipped in case the credit card doesn't have sufficient balance. So I'm going to go ahead and select that order that I just showed you in order to take you through what the pre-authorization process looks like. So the pre-authorization process, as the term suggests, is a way by which the system will then communicate with your credit card service provider in order to create a booking or a reservation of the credit card amount for the credit card amount that will be charged if this order was, went through the complete process and was actually fulfilled. So as you can see, whatever your sales order back order total is the default pre-authorized amount, but you could always add an extra amount in there as a buffer in case the shipping is going to be higher than what was initially expected on that sales order, and you don't want to have the ship sales order process fail because the pre-authorized amount was not enough because you underestimated the shipping costs. So your users have the ability to pre-authorize more than what was in the original back order sales order total, in order to make sure you cover any additional freight charges, for example, that may be more than what was initially estimated. Okay, and this pre-authorization puts a temporary hold on the customer's credit card to cover the order, and then finally, when you're shipping, if you require pre-authorization for credit card sales order shipments, then as long as your pre-authorized amount is sufficient to cover the amount that is going to be shipped, then your shipment will go through without any error messages. If it is not sufficient for the amount you're shipping, then the system will issue you an error message at the point of shipment. And that's only if you set up the system to require pre-authorization. So that's another option that we make available. And again, we make that option available because users may want to make sure before they ship their order that they will get paid by the credit card, and the credit card does have enough balance available in order to pay the items that are being shipped. So they're not going to have to chase after their customers after the items have already been shipped to make sure they get paid. In terms of the actual payment process, the payment process is going to be the same. okay? Except that you will then be using a credit card integration pay code like the one I showed you. And once you do, then you're going to see the same screen here that I showed you when I was entering a sales order. This is the same screen you'll see when you're entering an AR invoice with the credit card pay, integration pay code used as well. So here again, you can either enter a card number on the fly as you're recording the payment. If there's a new credit card that the customer wants to use to pay that particular at that particular point in time, or use one of the existing customer credit cards on file. And then this one will actually charge the credit card because you're now recording a payment. Okay. And then basically the rest of the payment process is going to be the same. So the beauty of it is the credit card validation and the credit card payment processing is all in the same workflow. It's all in the same screen that you use to actually record your payment. So there's no separate screen, there's no separate device that your users have to use. So it cuts down on the time it takes them to actually process the customer payments, and it's all in the same software. Okay. And so it saves them time. And of course, time saved is also money saved. So that's it for the credit card integration feature. Obviously, there's a whole lot more switches to turn on and off, and other transaction functions also affected that has to do with processing credit card payment voids or voiding credit card payments, or what do you call that? Refunding open credits that originated from a credit card payment. So I'm not going to go into them in detail, but just know that those features are available in the system as well. So that's it for the first part, the first enhancement. Now let's talk about the next enhancement, and this time it has to do with the click to pay feature. Now, as you know, we introduced click to pay in one of the version 12 product releases, but we are continue to enhance that. And one of the biggest enhancements that we have done with click to pay is the ability to assign net days to your click to pay code. Okay? In earlier versions of AccountMate, the net days field was disabled, but now we changed that to enable the net days. And the reason for the change is that even though you assign click to pay as a pay code for your invoice, and we use that to tell the system that this invoice needs to show up in the repay click to pay payment portal so that the customers can pay for those invoices by themselves using that online payment gateway. But there's no guarantee that those customers will indeed pay those click to pay invoices using that payment portal, much less that they will pay them on time. So even though invoices are assigned click to pay code, they still need to be aged accurately and have them show up in the accurate aging category in your AR aging report. And that is the purpose of your net days field, so that just in case your customers do not pay those click to pay invoices in a timely manner, your customers can still see those click to pay invoices in your AR aging report and have them be categorized in the proper aging buckets in accordance with the company's AR aging and credit terms policies. Okay, so that's the one big change with regards to the click to pay feature set. Another thing that we have changed is that, let's say you have a customer that has a number of click to pay invoices, and you want to be able to view those click to pay invoices conveniently without having to search for the individual invoices yourselves. Or you want to be able to communicate a link to your customer where they can see it through that link, all the invoices that are still outstanding that are set up for click to pay. How do you do that in AccountMate 13.1? Well, that's what this copy click to pay URL button is for. This, as long as your client's customer has at least one click to pay invoice, this copy click to pay URL button is enabled. And then your users can then click on that button, which basically copies that URL onto allows you to copy that URL onto the website or onto your web app. And then your users can then go and see all of the outstanding click to pay invoices for that particular customer themselves, or they can also email that same information to that particular customer. So let's say you did email the invoices, the individual click to pay invoices to the customer, but for whatever reason the customer said, I never received them. Can you just send me an URL where I can view all of those outstanding click to pay invoices? So then you can use that same copy click to pay button to copy that information onto an email you will then send to the customer. And then when the customer receives it, they can click on that same link, okay? Like I have, and they will be shown the exact same page. But now they're accessing that page to view all of their outstanding click to pay invoices using the email you sent them, just in case they never receive for one reason or other the individual invoices in PDF form that you may have sent to them before with the click to pay invoice link in there. Okay, so there's a number of ways you can communicate to each individual customer the web page where they can view all of their outstanding click to pay invoices. Speaking of the PDF, okay, that too has been updated. Okay. In earlier versions where the click to pay feature was available, the click to pay hyperlink on the invoice actually had the caption of repay or AccountMate click to pay, which based on your feedback was not very clear exactly what that hyperlink was supposed to do. And some users are not even able to realize, are not even able to infer that they're supposed to click on that link to view their online as a way to get to the payment gateway online. So we have now revised that label on the hyperlink, which again used to say click to pay. We revised that label to say click here to pay online in order to remove any ambiguity when they receive a click to pay invoice in PDF form like this from you or your users. And it clearly says exactly what that hyperlink is supposed to take them to. And by taking away the ambiguity in the label, it also helps assure your clients' customers when they receive that PDF that it is safe to click on that hyperlink. Because we know with so many spams and identity theft issues, people are becoming more wary about clicking any hyperlinks, even in documents they receive from a trusted source. So with that label, with that hyperlink more clearly labeled, hopefully that will be a better assurance to your clients' customers that it is safe to pay that to click on that hyperlink. They will know what to expect when they do click on that hyperlink. Okay, another enhancement again that affects AR and SO has to do with the sales tax integration. You will know that as the sales tax integration using tax jar in earlier versions of AccountMate 12, I think it was introduced in 12. And we've renamed it to sales tax integration in 13 because in addition to tax jar, we now support sales tax integration through Avalara Ava Tax. Okay. Now, if you choose what your clients will choose depends on which service provider they want to go with. But for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to select Avalara because that is the new option introduced in 13.1. And as usual, once you make that choice, you need to go through a setup process where based on the service provider, you will be given a bunch of information that you will use to log in to your, in this case, Avalara accounts inside AccountMate software. So all this information you see here will depend on the sales tax integration service providers. TaxJar will require its own set of information. Avalara will require its own set of information. Of course, that does entail that your clients will have to sign up for the sales tax integration service with Avalara separately from AccountMate. Okay, and once they've signed up with Avalara, then they will be given the necessary login credentials that they will use in order to input that information here and click the test connection to make sure that AccountMate will be able to communicate and connect with Avalara service provider using the account you provided. And just like with the tax jar integration, it's going to be a separate set of login information for every company that you've got running inside the AccountMate installation that it needs to use the sales tax integration with Avalara. So if I have two companies, then I will have to set up two accounts with Avalara, one for each company. Okay. Once it's been set up, and I'm going to go and run the company that has already been pre-set up. If you could bear with me, I'm just going to pause. I'm sharing my screen. Okay. Just to show you what is going to happen into the screen after you've completed your setup. So once you've completed your Avalara sales tax integration setup, you will then be able to see the tax codes that come from Avalara. Now, these are not to be confused with your sales tax code. These tax codes serve more as inventory tax categories for those inventory items that are either tax exempt or subject to a lower tax rate than normal items would be. And again, this comes from Avalara. And then you also have your Nexus state. And this Nexus state, again, comes from the Avalara service provider. And you can click here in order to take you to the Avalara website where your users will then need to log in. And once they've logged in, I'm not going to be able to take you through the login process, but once they've logged into the Avalara website, there's a section in the website where they will need to select the states that they will be in which they will be doing business and for which they will need to impose sales tax. Okay, and so those states that they've signed up for with Avalara are the states that they're going to see listed here, and they just need to click refresh in case the list is not updated because they have just recently added another set of Nexus states in the Avalara website, and they want to make sure that the AccountMate application gets the updated list of states. And then, of course, you will need to set up your synchronization settings to make sure that AccountMate is able to regularly on a schedule upload your taxable sales tax to the Avalara sales tax integration website in order for Avalara to then be able to send you a report of how much your taxable amounts are that you need to report and remit to the corresponding tax authorities. You will also be able to see the transactions that may have been recorded since the last synchronization or upload was done here in this list that I'm showing you. Okay, and then of course the regular processing is going to work just like normal. So you're going to enter an sales order or an invoice. For this demonstration, I'm going to use an invoice to show it to you. The critical point here is to make sure that the sales tax that is assigned to your sales order or invoice that it is one that has, oops, that's not the one. Let me use a different invoice. Oops, it must be 1088. Okay. Okay. It has to be the sales tax that is called Avalara. So once you activate this sales tax integration with Avalara, you have to create a tax code called Avalara, which will only have one tax entity, also called Avalara, and the tax rate on that tax entity needs to be 0. Why? Because Avalara will be the one responsible for calculating the sales tax on the taxable line items in your sales order or invoice transaction. And I say taxable because one of the things you need to define per inventory record is you need to assign a tax code coming from the Avalara website that represents the tax categories of items. If you leave this tax code field empty, that means this item is subject to normal tax calculation. Any line items that are supposed to be tax exempt or subject to a reduced tax rate will need to be assigned the corresponding tax code based on the list, the tax code list that Avalara provides. Okay, and then once the corresponding tax code with the corresponding Avalara tax entity is assigned to your invoice or sales order transaction, as you're entering line items, then the system will be able to identify which of these items are subject to tax or exempt from tax or subject to reduced tax. And the Avalara integration will then calculate the appropriate sales tax amount for you, okay? Now, in order to be able to do the sales tax calculation correctly, Avalara or TaxJar for that matter needs to be able to verify that your addresses are accurate, because at the end of the day, the shipping address on your invoice or sales order determines what or helps Avalara determine what the appropriate tax rate is for that particular sales transaction. Which brings me to my next enhancement that I want to focus on, which is the address validation. Okay. In earlier versions of AccountMate, we introduced the address validation, but in 13.1, we expanded further in order to add another option. So in earlier versions, we supported USPS and TaxJar address validation. For 13.1, we now support a third option, which is Avalara. Now, once you sign up with Avalara for your sales tax integration, Avalara will give you the login credentials you need in order to activate sales tax integration and also to set up address validations through Avalara. So this information here is going to come from Avalara once you sign up with them. So again, let me go ahead and run the actual company that's already set up with Avalara address validation to show you how it works. So it all starts with the customer addresses. Say you had a customer and you have address validation set up. Let me just make the address wrong here so I can trigger Avalara to do its job, Avalara address validation. So once you enter an address or you edit an existing address, the address validation will check for it and it will show you the address as was entered by the user here on the left and the suggested address based on the validation that the Avalara system performed. And you can choose to use either the user entered one or the suggested one. I'm going to use suggested, and then that will be what I would then update. And I will see that both that mechanism both in the customer address maintenance or as I'm entering orders or invoices where I have shipping and billing address. So it will go through that same validation process to make sure that the address is accurate, and in so doing, the system will also be able to validate that the sales tax calculation will also be accurate. Okay. Now the final feature enhancement in AR that I want to highlight has to do with our finance charge mechanism. So as you know, in AR, you can apply finance charge. And one of the options when applying finance charge is whether you apply finance charge based on invoice balance or past due statement balance. When you apply finance charge based on statement balance, the system actually creates a separate invoice called the finance charge invoice to hold the finance charge that was imposed. In earlier versions of AccountMate, when that happens, there's no way the user can assign a pay code to that finance charge invoice. And so that finance charge invoice is always due right away, even though the company's policy may be to give 30 days whatever grace period for those finance charge invoice like they would normal invoices. So that is changed in 13.1. When you charge on past due statement balance, the system will require your users to assign a pay code, which will then be assigned to any invoices created when you apply finance charge based on past due statement balance. In addition to that capability, we also give you a new report called Print Finance Charge Invoice. This report gives you the ability to print just the invoices that were created by the post finance charge based on statement balance mechanism, because those finance charges go into their separate invoices. And what is really important about this report is it shows you not just that it allows you not just to view finance charge invoices separately, but also to see the breakdown of what invoices made up the statement balance that was used to calculate the finance charge. How much was the outstanding balance of each of those invoices? How much of the outstanding balance was chargeable? And therefore, this report helps address those questions that your customers may have. Will say, okay, but how did you calculate that finance charge? What was the basis that you were using in order to come up with that finance charge amount? So that is really the purpose for which we created this report. Now that's it for the AR enhancements. Let's move on to the enhancements in the manufacturing module, which affects two maintenance records, labor and maintenance. We have now added the ability to attach records to or attach files to your labor records as well as to your maintenance records. In the terms of your labor records, if you're using, let's say your client who are using the manufacturing module doesn't use AccountMate payroll, or maybe they have they even outsource their payroll to an outside party to handle, but they need to keep track of certain information about the employees that are represented by the labor records, such as maybe the last performance evaluation review, any training information that this employee has gone through, or any other type of information you want to keep track of for purposes of dealing with that particular employee that is represented by this labor record. So this attachment capability allows you to attach whatever documents that as it pertains to that individual employee represented by this labor maintenance record. For machine maintenance, this is also important. So let's say you want to keep track of your blueprints for this machine in case you need it to replace the parts of the machine or for maintenance purposes. So you can use it to attach blueprints and set up guides like this one, or you can also use it to attach documents like your last maintenance record that identified what issues were found, what issues were fixed, and when is the suggested next repair date. and things like or outstanding issues or whatever other documents as it pertains to maintaining and keeping and that machine in good working order that you're using in your manufacturing process. So this is another use for the attachment feature as it pertains to the machine maintenance records. Okay. And then now let's move on to the enhancement in the financial module, particularly in the GL module. That applies to the create journal entry from recurring template. As you guys know, we have the ability to create a recurring journal entry template and be able to generate your batches from that template. But in earlier versions of AccountMate, you can only generate those batch one cycle at a time, which may not be very convenient for your users. So in in SQL 13.1, we changed that by adding this recurring batch date range fields from two fields that lets you define multiple dates that fall within that date range. So as long as your recurring JE template, journal entry template, has multiple available number of cycles, like here, I still have 114 cycles left, I can define a date range that falls between the next recurring date and the last recurring date, in order to define multiple cycles. So here, let's say I'm going to generate one starting the 1st of July this month until, let's say, the 1st of September 23. Okay. And depending on the cycles and the dates that were defined in the journal entry template that I'm using to run this generate function, when I hit save, the system will then create as many batches as that falls in the cycle for that date range that I provided. So as you can see, when I hit preview on this report, it will show me that 2 batches were created. This is the first batch, and this is the second batch. Okay. And so this is a good mechanism, a good change, because let's say I've set up fixed asset depreciation for multiple years. Let's say it's a 5-year depreciation period, and I want to make sure I depreciate all periods of the current year. So I can do that now at the start of the year to make sure every fiscal period already has the available unposted batches, and all I need to do is just post the batches each time. And it helps to make sure I don't forget any periods that I need to generate for this current year, which will happen if I had to do it one fiscal period at a time, as it was the mechanism in earlier versions of AccountMate SQL. So it's both for convenience and to help make sure that users don't miss out and forget to generate for remaining cycles of any given year. Okay. And so that basically concludes my webinar presentation to highlight the most important enhancements that are available in AccountMate 13.1 for SQL and Express. If you have any questions, because I know I didn't go into too much detail about these enhancements, but if you had any questions, send them to about any of the features I covered. Send them to support@accountmate.com. If you have any inquiries about pricing for sales tax integration module, or for any of the partners, the companies we partnered with for the sales tax integration, service providers or credit card processing integration service providers, you can contact your business development manager. And as always, you can check out our website for more information. Additional enhancements and bug fixes are available in 13.1 for SQL and Express. In the meantime, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you found this webinar useful and that you are as excited about the AccountMate 13.1 for SQL and Express product release as we are. Thank you all once again for joining us today, and I wish you all a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.